So if you've ever wondered what your boss really thinks of you, or if there's something important that no one is saying to your face about your leadership, well, this video, my friend, is for you because I got some insider information that you need to hear. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 4 common frustrations that executives are repeatedly expressing about their managers behind closed doors, why no one's directly telling you these truths and what that means for your career. And I'm going to give you some clear examples of how these issues show up in your day-to-day management style. Trust me when I say that knowing these truths could literally be the difference between staying stuck and potentially never progressing in your career or becoming that impactful leader that people respect. So first, just some framing here in terms of where I'm even getting this insider information from. So I work regularly with organizations to train their people managers. I've worked with franchise companies, nonprofits, for-profits, startups, and the leadership teams who bring me in often share their frustrations and struggles around their frontline and middle managers from the perspective, of course, of wanting to help them. So I want to clarify that the companies I've interacted with and worked with, they're not complaining. They're just recognizing that there is a deep skill set gap that exists that needs to be filled by training. The second disclaimer is that these things I'm about to share aren't entirely on you. So I don't want anyone in this room watching this video feeling defensive about what I'm about to share, because the truth is it's kind of a combination of both parties, honestly, being part of the problem here, because you're also A, not being told, and B, not really being held accountable to meet these expectations that they have. Instead, these frustrations are falling under the bucket of you should just know already, which I think is not fair. Now, what you do with the information once you know better is on you, but before that, it really is the duty of at least your manager to let you know the truth. So now that we got that out of the way, let me start by telling you about a conversation I recently had with a CEO who brought me in to train their management team. So when I asked him what his biggest frustration was with his frontline managers, he leaned in and basically said, "I can't scale chaos." And what he meant by that was that his managers were constantly putting out fires, running from one crisis to another, but never actually building systems to prevent those fires in the first place. Now, I gotta tell you, this particular CEO isn't alone. He might have articulated this best, but when I speak to other executives and directors across different industries, that one complaint comes up consistently, right? They'll say things like, "Mac, they just don't think strategically," or "they're just executing a bunch of tasks." Now, if you're hearing this and feeling defensive, I get it. Because here's what isn't fair. No one is telling you this to your face. But I can definitely understand and see why this is a frustration. And I know y'all well enough to know that you're even feeling like you're operating in pure chaos all the time. So it's definitely something that you can probably admit exists. So with that being said, here's truth number 1 that you need to hear. If you're operating as a firefighter, you're not leading, you're just managing a lot of tasks. Meaning, if your team is constantly coming to you for every little decision, that's not leadership, that's creating dependency. If you're spending your days checking items off of a list instead of looking ahead and connecting those dots to the bigger business goals, you're not demonstrating strategic thinking, but instead, you're operating as a well-paid IC. But here's the good news. This isn't about some magical talent you either have or don't have, okay? It's about recognizing that your job is no longer to know it all, but to build clarity and autonomy at this level that effectively trickles down so that your people, the people that you're leading, are rowing in the right direction with the right tools and skills, period. And again, like I said, this isn't just one of those things that you're either born with or not. You can absolutely learn how to do this when you have a proper framework to help you get there. Okay, so the second frustration I hear about managers is this. My managers avoid hard conversations like the plague. So when I was facilitating a workshop with a leadership team last year, the VP of HR actually said, she put up her hand and she was like, "Mac, I often spend my time having to clean up emotional messes that could have been avoided had our managers address these behaviors earlier instead of waiting till the very last minute to deal with it." Tough, right? Well, that leads us to truth number 2, which is the fact that your success as a manager does depend on your ability to have effective, tough conversations. Now, I would love nothing more than to sit here and tell you that you won't have to have some uncomfortable conversations, downwards, sideways, and above you. but I can't do that because it's not true. And as someone who has struggled with this myself in ways that could have taken me out to the point that I might not even be here sitting with you right now had I not worked through this blocker, I want you to know that you cannot lead if you can't be honest, because your team, your organization, the results don't need you to be a nice manager. They all need you to be a clear manager. One of my students, Bianca, used to be really uncomfortable with confrontation, or what she perceived to be confrontation. So I'm talking giving feedback, managing up, cross-functionally communicating concerns. She was just uncomfortable with all of that in those settings. In her words, she would put it off, flower it up, or just not say anything at all, which had her carrying a significantly heavier load. But after learning the frameworks for approaching these conversations and then using our conversation navigator, she not only overcame this fear, but started to engage in conversations that a lot of you sitting here might think were really difficult. But she did them and was commended by her manager for her grit and growth. The truth is, avoiding conflict isn't kindness. It's actually costing you trust, results, and your own peace of mind. So it's actually better for you to completely flip your mindset around it, view it as a necessity, and learn how to engage in these conversations in an effective way. Because I think part of what creates this fear is the fact that you've had maybe some bad experiences that just reinforces the fear. So we just need to give you the tools and the training so that you're more effective in these conversations, and then you have better experiences and you grow in your confidence to be able to navigate them, just like Bianca and Elisa and Lisa and Tiara and Claire and so many more that didn't feel like that initially, but are killing it now. So if you are dreading an upcoming conversation, or let's say you've been having the same conversation with a team member over and over again with nothing changing, then I want you to know that we can get you on the right path so that you are armed with what you need to do so effectively. Okay, we will direct you to the navigator to figure out which conversation is best based off of the situation, because not all conversations are equal. Then we'll give you the training for the matching framework and pair it with the right script and send you off so you can do this thing, get a quick win, and keep building momentum instead of continuing to reinforce bad habits. Okay, so definitely go to makitaandrews.com/training to learn more about NMA and grab enrollment at a limited time special rate. Now, here's what's interesting about these tough conversations, okay? They become even harder to execute when you're already feeling overwhelmed. And that overwhelm, well, it often comes from a place that I am very familiar with, which brings me to our third truth. So let me share something personal with y'all, because I know you love to hear about my mishaps on this channel. So when I first stepped into management, I was pretty desperate to prove myself, which I think it came from my inexperience, my imposter syndrome, insecurity. And what I did to kind of compensate for that is I started to make things more complicated than it really needed to be. So I'll give you an example. I did things like I created elaborate tracking systems and multi-step workflows, and I would send overly long emails to the executive team with far too much information, all because I was trying to show how thorough I was in my work. And then one day, my manager pulled me in, and to his credit, right, he didn't hold it back from me, but to his credit, he gave me the feedback that not everything needed to be that complicated and that I was coming off as insecure. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, that was hurtful for me to hear in the moment, because I thought about that for much longer than I would like to admit. But I share that because it's like coming full circle in a sense, because now being on the other side of things, I'm hearing other leaders say the same thing about their managers, right? They'll say things like, I have a few managers on the team that are clearly insecure, and it shows. I also don't know how to help them, because if I give them feedback, it's going to derail them for days, and I can't afford that. Actually, within the same vein, one director actually told me about his middle manager. He said, Mac, I don't need her to send me a 20-page report to show me how much research she did. What I need is for her to make a decision and stand behind it, because that's what I hired her for. I gotta tell you, for that one, I felt kind of called out, because I was like, oh my gosh, that was me so many years ago. Anyway, the truth that you need to hear is that for most things, you're not overwhelmed, you're just not prioritizing. You know, I've said this on the channel many times before, but hey, a little repetition isn't a bad thing. For many of you, you don't have a time problem, you have a clarity problem. Meaning you are reacting to everything and doing the most that isn't necessary, because you haven't decided what matters most to you. or you haven't spoken to your manager about what matters most to them. But either way, you're not clear. Therefore, you're saying yes to the wrong things and overstacking yourself. Because going back to the manager with the 20-page report on the research, if she truly recognized the value of her time and was clear on expectations, then she wouldn't spend her time on reports. She would have delivered exactly what her manager wanted, which was a decision and a clear, reasoning position for that decision. So I want to ask you, do you find yourself in the weeds often? Do you find that you are saying yes more than you are saying no? Because if you are, what that means is that you need to recalibrate and anchor yourself in clarity. All right, the fourth common frustration I hear from executives is this: my managers are emotionally reactive. Now, what they mean by that is that some managers display mood swings or defensiveness or just shut down entirely in high pressure situations. So essentially, there's a lot of emotions at play that's clouding their better judgment. Which brings me to truth number 4. Your emotional intelligence matters more than your technical skills. As you move up in leadership, your ability to manage your emotions becomes increasingly important. Because let me tell you, people will test you and push your buttons in all sorts of ways, and your ability to handle that is everything. Now, I want to be clear, it's not about never feeling frustrated or stressed. That's not realistic because we're all human. But what it is how you process and express those emotions. Do you have a way to work through that effectively so it's not clouding your judgment and your decision making and your reputation? Because if not, then you really have to think about that and work through it. I've worked with countless managers, right, who started emotionally reacting to everything from team conflict to critical feedback. And you know what? The ones who learned to process their emotions properly were the ones who got respect from their teams and got noticed positively by upper management. One student, who I don't want to name because of the sensitivity of this, he told me that he used to take everything personally. Every missed deadline, every pushback from his team just felt like a personal attack on him and his leadership. But once he learned to separate his emotions from these situations, he created a calm, consistent leadership presence that now made his team feel secure even during the most chaotic periods. These frustrations that were raised by leadership teams surfaces a vital truth, which is that as people managers, we really have to move beyond the technical skills that got us promoted in the first place. Because while they might have made us superstar ICs, it's not what's going to make us awesome sauce managers. And that's because it's a completely different skill set, right? One that's focused on clarity, courage, prioritization, and emotional intelligence. Now, the good news is these are all learnable skills, right? They're not innate talents that you either have or don't have. At the end of the day, every manager I've had the privilege of working with has been able to expand in this area, and they've seen significant improvements, not just in their team's performance, but also in how they're being perceived by upper management. And the one thing they all had in common that you're going to need to elevate yourself is this: they had a fundamental shift in their mindset that allowed them to go to the next level. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to check out this video here next, because in it I share the exact mindset shift that has been foundational for every successful manager I've ever trained.